If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech video, another patron request, this time from Adigio. Adigio is another one of my top tier patrons where once a month I'll do a Deck Tech by request for them. So for the very first one for Adigio, Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. If you're interested in the full deck list, I will have it linked below in the description. I will also have a link to my Patreon, so if you want to become a patron and have a monthly deck tech request, I will do that for you. Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite is probably my favorite Praetor. They all do one-sided things, and people tend to hate Vorinclex and Jin-Gitaxias the most. There's also Sheoldred and Urabrask. Elesh Norn is kind of in the same category as those two. We have Vorinclex and Jin-Gitaxias just excelling at mana and card draw. It's really hard to compete with those. But Elesh Norn brings a lot of power to what is otherwise a pretty weak deck in mono white. Mono white doesn't really do a lot well in Commander. Card draw and mana ramp, it really suffers. So the goal of the deck is to try to do our best with mana and card draw and then set up for Elesh Norn. Now other ways we can do that is by adding other anthems into the deck. An anthem is pretty much anything that can give your creatures +1/+1 or any kind of power and toughness boost for that matter. It's also pretty brutal like the Praetors tend to be. Creatures of your opponent's control get -2/-2. With Elesh Norn out on play, you can lock down so many strategies, forcing your opponents to get a removal spell in order to deal with Elesh Norn. If they don't do it, they could very well just lose the game right there. A lot of your creatures are going to be pretty big because of Elesh Norn and a lot of the other anthems we have in the deck. And because we have a lot of anthems, we're going to have some token production, so that'll be another direction we go in. And like a lot of my deck techs, I want to start off with the lands first. Now, ramp and card draw is pretty important, so Temple of the False God, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and Arch of Orazca I think are pretty good. It's going to help speed this deck up a little bit. Arch of Orazca is probably not going to speed it up, but if we ever have an empty turn where we don't really have anything to do, just pay 5 mana and draw a card. It is Commander, we're probably going to have the City's Blessing. A new card is Castle Ardenvale. Really good in mono white, we're probably going to have a Plains, but we can pay 4 mana and tap it to create a 1/1 white human creature token, which again is kind of like Arch of Orazca. If we have nothing else to do, you might as well just make that token. We have some pretty good retrieval cards like Buried Ruin and Hall of Heliod's Generosity. These make it so that we can easily just get an artifact or an enchantment back from our graveyard, especially Hall of Heliod's Generosity. This is such a good card. We get multiple uses out of it, and we're not playing that many enchantments, but the ones we do have are pretty powerful. Emeria the Sky Ruin is a staple in mono white. It is so easy to just get steamrolled in this kind of deck, so you need a way to get your creatures back. And in mono white, we also don't have a lot of ways to win the game aside from combat damage, so Rogue's Passage to me is a must-have in this kind of deck. There's also Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, which, yes, you can play it in a mono white deck. There are no black symbols on the card. I'm not going to explain why we have it in here just yet, but it is an alternate win con. Alright, so now I want to get into some other ways to ramp up and draw some cards. Skullclamp is a very good staple in mono white. Even though we don't have any sack outlets, drawing 2 cards when that creature dies is still way too good to pass up. Endless Atlas is a must-have, again in mono white. We don't have a lot of ways to draw cards, and we're going to have mostly plains. Pay 2 mana and draw a card. It's that simple. Mindstone does give us a mana, but we could pay 1 to sack it to draw a card. Mind's Eye is another exceptional way that we can draw cards with all of our mana untapped. That way we can just pay 1 whenever an opponent draws a card to draw a card. And although it's not always going to trigger, Mentor of the Meek does offer us a way to pay mana to draw a card. A lot of our creatures could be bigger than 2, so pay attention to that. Now our mana is pretty important, we want to get even more of it. Expedition Map technically doesn't ramp us, but it will give us our Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, or any useful land for that matter. Sol Ring's pretty obvious. Pearl Medallion isn't ramp, but it does give us cost reduction for all of our white spells, so it might as well be. Sword of the Animist. Again, white is not really good at doing these things, so you need to resort to colorless ways of getting it. And Oketra's Monument, kind of like Pearl Medallion, but just for our white creatures, and we do get tokens off of casting them, so it does help out later with what we want to do in the deck. We do have Cage Sun, and the Immortal Sun can definitely help accelerate our deck. The Immortal Sun is just a Swiss Army knife, can pretty much do whatever we need it to do. All around advantage, perfect card. And of course we are in mono white, so why not play probably the best white card made within the last couple years, Smothering Tithe. While I personally prefer Rhystic Study, I'm a card draw kind of guy, you kind of have to play this in this deck. We are so limited in recovery, and our commander does cost 7 mana, so if we have to recast her, she's going to be 9, and then 11, and that's a ton of mana to have to get in mono white. Now, I want to talk about some utility cards. Now, to me, utility kind of goes beyond card draw and ramp, because those are pretty much present in every deck. Utility to me is anything that can provide usefulness beyond your actual strategy and beyond the basics of Commander. So Mother of Runes provides us a way to give protection to our Elesh Norn. It's just a simple creature at 1-drop. There's also Grand Abolisher. We hate removal and we hate being countered. This makes it so that if we really have a big turn coming, we can go crazy with our anthems and start killing players in combat. Thalia Heretic Cathar doesn't really do anything special for our deck, but again, very strong white creatures that serve a purpose on their own. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Brings them down to our level, let's just say that. And of course Sun Titan. Creature recursion is important, but we don't always have an abundance of it. Sun Titan is just one of the best white creatures for Commander. And although it doesn't really fool around with anthems, so is Avacyn, Angel of Hope. If we get board wiped, we are kind of screwed, so hopefully this helps us deal with the majority of that. And one of the better utility spells, I would say, there's really nothing else like it. Teferi's Protection, serving a similar purpose to Avacyn, can help save our board from board wipes, or just saving ourselves from a lot of damage, force your opponents to have to go at each other. This is just a fantastic card that belongs in every mono white deck. Now I get to talk about the one card that does synergize with Urborg in this deck. The only reason why we're playing it is because it has this interaction with Elesh Norn. Cormus Bell. You treat all swamps in play as 1/1 creatures. This is really disgusting with Urborg. Now keep in mind, if your opponents already have an Urborg, you don't even need to search yours up. Half the work's already done for you. With Elesh Norn, all of your opponent's creatures get -2/-2. If everybody's lands are swamps, Cormus Bell is pretty much going to turn those swamps into 1/1 creatures that will be killed off of Elesh Norn's negative anthem. So, land destruction in a very unique way. We could also play Armageddon, but to me that's too easy, and it doesn't really feel unique to the deck. If you want to take it out, you can take it out and just focus on a more fair version of Elesh Norn that just focuses on anthems. But if I were to actually build the deck and play it, this is just way too good to pass up. And now we go on to the final part of the deck that I want to talk about. It is anthems and creature production. Let's talk about our anthems first. We have a wide variety of them. Artifacts, creatures, enchantments. We're not going to play every single anthem ever made because sometimes they can just be useless, and if we don't have the creature production, they don't really do that much. So we want to limit the anthems, but we want to play very useful cards at the same time. Spear of Heliod is not just an anthem, but we can pay 3 mana to destroy a creature that dealt damage to us this turn. Eldrazi Monument, creatures we control are going to get +1/+1 and have flying and indestructible. We do have to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of our upkeep, but hopefully we're ahead on token production. We have Benalish Marshal, which is just a 3 mana creature that gives us an anthem for our other creatures. We have some nasty cards like Angel of Jubilation. Other non-black creatures we control get +1/+1, which should be every creature, and players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. One of the most brutal white cards that you can play in Commander. Celestial Crusader just gives other white creatures +1/+1 so they could be your opponent's creatures. Really cool though with Split Second, just piling on those anthems. Hero of Bladehold technically doesn't give an anthem, but Battle Cry just gives +1/+0 to other attacking creatures. She also gives us token production. Angel of Invention is a very useful card. If we want the tokens, we can get it off the Fabricate. If not, we just have a 4/3 Flying Vigilance lifelink creature that will give our other creatures a +1/+1 anthem. Captain of the Watch just gives that anthem to other soldier creatures, but you get 3 of them on our ETB. And one of my favorite cards in the whole deck is Krovak's Ascendant Hero. This guy is very difficult to get rid of because you could just pay 2 life and return him to your hand. Other white creatures get +1/+1 and non-white creatures get -1/-1. Very awesome when paired with Elesh Norn. A lot of creatures are going to get -3/-3, which makes it difficult for most creatures to survive. We have Marshall's Anthem, which is another way that we can get creatures back from our graveyard to the battlefield if we pay that multi-kicker. Other than that, it's a basic +1/+1 Anthem. And Dictative Heliod is a flash anthem that gives our creatures +2/+2. But a newer card that I have fallen in love with from Commander 2019 is Commander's Insignia. Creatures we control get +1/+1 for each time we've cast our commander from the command zone this game. I realize that Elesh Norn is a whopping 7 mana, and to recast her means that you have to pay even more, but late game this should be one of the most powerful cards in your deck. Giving all of your creatures +1/+1 for each time, that is really going to add up. It's going to make your Elesh Norn bigger, it's going to make everything you have bigger. Now we definitely need creature production. If we don't have token production, these anthems pretty much go to waste. So we have creatures that just provide us with those tokens. Brimaz, King of Oreskos, is a pretty cheap one, also very good in combat. We also have Oketra the True, all around a very good white creature, but does have an activated ability that can give us a 1/1 white warrior creature token with Vigilance. We have God Eternal Oketra, which will give us a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with Vigilance every time we cast a creature spell, and with Double Strike she can be one of the more intimidating creatures as well. A lot of our token production is going to come from our instants and sorceries, like Secure the Wastes. Instant speed, put X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens onto the battlefield. It's just X and 1 white mana, which means you can save up a whole turn's worth of mana, do this on your opponent's end step, and have those tokens to work with if you want to follow it up with an Elesh Norn. White Sun Zenith, kind of the same thing, but you do get better tokens. They're 2/2 white cat creature tokens. And like the other Zenith spells, you do have to shuffle it into your library. We have the powerful card from War of the Spark, Finale of Glory. X 2/2 white soldier creature tokens with Vigilance are pretty cool, but if X is 10 or more, you also create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and Vigilance. So this is definitely a spell you want to save up and use for the late game. That way you could possibly just win right then and there with Elesh Norn. Martial Coup is a very awesome card in mono white. Not only can you get a lot of tokens out of it, but you get to destroy all other creatures, leaving you with a bunch of tokens and an empty board. And Conqueror's Pledge is another pretty cool sorcery. Does have a kicker. If we don't pay it, we get 6 1/1 white core soldier creature tokens. If it was kicked, we put 12 of those onto the battlefield instead. Total creatures for the mana that you put into it makes Conqueror's Pledge one of the better sorceries for creature token production. You don't even have to pay the kicker, and it's still going to give you some good value. And one of the best cards in the whole deck, Elspeth Sun's Champion, gives you 3 soldiers on her plus, which is just ridiculous. Her -3 is very good removal, and her ult just synergizes with this deck even further, giving our creatures +2/+2 and flying. There really isn't another planeswalker that fits in better in this deck than Elspeth Sun's Champion. And since we do have a bunch of token production, Anointed Procession is pretty obvious. Get double those tokens. And finally, before I end the video, I just want to talk about 2 more cards that I think stand out the most on their own. Blade of Selves and Helm of the Host. Both take advantage of Elesh Norn's Anthems, her +2/+2, and her -2/-2. The way that Blade of Selves works is that you attack with Elesh Norn, and if you have 2 other opponents, you get a copy of Elesh Norn into play, attacking them. There is the legendary rule, you will have to sacrifice them. Those creatures still enter the battlefield, which means their abilities still happen. Elesh Norn will give -2/-2 to your opponent's creatures, and if you have 3 of them on the field, that's going to be a total of -6/-6. Yes, those 2 will go away, but they served their purpose. They pretty much board wiped your opponents. And Helm of the Host is just ridiculous because you don't even have to worry about the legendary rule. You will get another Elesh Norn token. All of your creatures will get +4/+4. Your opponent's creatures will get -4/-4. And it'll just keep happening until your opponents remove it, making it one of the most powerful cards in the whole deck. But other than that, we just have some basic removal. Very good cards like Enlightened Tutor, Generous Gift, Return to Dust, cards you've probably seen a million times in mono white decks. I enjoyed making this deck for Adagio. Again, thanks for being a patron of mine. If anyone else is interested in becoming a patron, again, the link will be in the description below. Elesh Norn is probably my favorite of the Praetors. I just like how she seems a bit more tame than some of the other ones, while at the same time still being incredibly one-sided. You cannot believe how many decks are just shut down once you play Elesh Norn. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.